What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got Scott Kennedy from Bleed From Within. Thank you for your time today, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. I'm literally just sitting at home doing nothing anyway, along with the rest of the world.
Exactly. What a great time for creativity.
Yeah.
But the new album is Fracture. Being that it was, a fairly short time between Fracture and Era, do you just consider this, kind of picking up where you left off after Era, or do you think that Fracture is almost kind of like a standout in the Bleed From Within catalog?
It's definitely, I think personally, and I know every band member will say this, but I feel like it's our strongest album yet in terms of songwriting and just better songs. I think we were really trying to think, because when we released Era, we spent quite a lot of time on the road, and I feel like that natural influence of writing a song with the live show in mind just happened without even thinking about it, because we spent quite a lot of the time on tour when we were writing Fracture. So I feel like that came naturally. But in terms of picking up where we left off, we had 5 years gap between our album before Era, which was Uprising. We had a 5 years gap between Uprising and Era, so we just really wanted to get an album out as fast as possible. Obviously we didn't want to rush the material, but we wanted people to know that we were back and we were ready to continue with Bleed From Within, because I feel like a lot of people thought the band was over after our Uprising album. So yeah, we wanted to just get it out and let people hear what we had.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that these two singles that people might have heard so far, such as The End of All We Know and Into Nothing, could this almost serve as like a clear representation of what the entirety of Fracture will sound like, or is that just like the tip of the iceberg in a way?
Well, I feel like every song's slightly different to the other, and these two were the songs that were quite different musically. We've got End of All We Know, which is more of a sort of modern metal song, and then you've got Into Nothing, which I feel's got more of a sort of old school vibe to it. Like when we were writing Into Nothing, we kept referring to it as our Sad But True, because it's got that really sort of old school, stompy, slow thrash sort of sound going on. And it's very different to End of All We Know, so I think that's what we're really trying to achieve, let people know how different each song in the album is and where we were going creatively with the album.
Mm-hmm. Was that like a preconceived idea on how you wanted this album to sound like, or did it just kind of come naturally in a way?
I think it just came naturally. It's really hard to have an idea or an understanding of what you want an album to sound like before you've written the album. You just sort of, I guess, whatever ideas come to you, and you just put them down, and then once you have maybe 3 to 4 or 5 songs, that's when you start getting a feel for what you're doing. But before any of that happens, you're just sort of grabbing at any sort of inspiration and pulling it together, and then I think that's when you start to see what you have in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned, I know that, between Uprising and Era, there was a small gap, and I know that, Ali was playing with Silosis for a period of time as well, so, I'd imagine, do you think that maybe, going from Uprising to Era, with everybody kind of, going off in their own destinies, that allowed you guys to bring in some newer stuff to Bleed From Within?
I mean, yeah, after Uprising, we went through quite a lot of sort of difficult obstacles after that album. There was a point where the band was pretty much, to be honest, finished. And it was nothing to do with Ali playing in Silosis. It was just sort of legal things that we dealt with after that album that left us in a very bad situation. Mm-hmm. To the point where we didn't think we could overcome that, and we already had half the album written for Era, and we thought, you know what, man, let's just finish this and just keep going and put it out and see what people think. And I'm glad we did, because that Era was our most successful album. Once we started to tour that album, we started to see people in the audience singing the words back to our songs, and we had never ever experienced anything like that before, because we started to play around a lot with sort of melody and the vocals and choruses, and I feel like that really, we've always been worried about doing that, because you know what it's like when bands start to put a bit more melody in the vocals. People are like, oh, they've sold out, blah blah blah. But it was just something me personally I wanted to do, because like I don't want to just keep doing the same thing. I want to push myself as a vocalist and challenge myself and try new things out. And we were happy with the outcome, and that's when we started doing that. That's when we started to see our shows getting bigger and people singing the words back at us on stage, like from the audience, and it was such an incredible feeling. And I think we've just played on that with Fractured, but I went off on one and I forgot what the question was.
No, you answered it perfectly.
Okay.
But like that, you kind of led me into the next question, actually, because being a vocalist, there's kind of two questions to this. But having more of a melodic vocal style and having a more of an aggressive style, when you like have multiple usages of your voice, is that almost kind of like representing different sides of you as an artist?
I think it's easier to tell a story because you get different, like, from these different styles of vocals you're talking about, they translate a different emotion, and I feel like it's just nicer to be able to do that when you're trying to put a message across in lyrics. And I feel like me as a listener to some bands I listen to, whenever I hear like a good hooky chorus, you can almost feel the emotion in the words, and that's just always something I wanted to do. And I guess as you get older, you just mature a lot more, and I don't want to just be doing like some of our earlier stuff was just like really low sort of death metal style vocals, and I don't just want to keep doing that all the time. Like, I wanted to broaden my horizons.
Definitely, and I thought Arrow did exactly that when I heard that back in 2018. As a vocalist, do you need to hear music in order to come up with lyrics, or has there ever been a time where you have a story or a concept and maybe that could help determine the outcome of the music itself?
Well, I like to... I obviously write about personal things that happen to me. I try not to draw influence too much from other bands because I feel I don't want to be some carbon copy of another band. I like to try and sort of tell my own story. And what I actually do, like when I'm writing lyrics, I like to listen to instrumental music, like really sort of dark and dreary instrumental music. And yeah, I like to have some sort of background noise when I'm writing lyrics, but I don't like to listen to someone else's lyrics because I don't want to be anyone. So I like to sometimes listen to some instrumental music, like maybe Animals as Leaders or This Will Destroy You or something like that. I like to listen to like the instrumental stuff when I'm writing.
Yeah, what, you into Russian circles at all?
I've heard some of them and they're fucking amazing, man. But I've not dived deep into their material yet.
Do you like Aphex Twin 2 or Square Pusher, like that more techno instrumental stuff? I'm a nerd with that stuff, so.
No, but I've heard of Aphex Twin, but not the other one. But there's a band, I can't remember the name of them now. My friend let me hear, and we played a festival last summer, and they were playing, and it is like really dark but so heavy, man. And I can't remember the name of them now.
Arthur and Punisher?
No. Oh God, what are they called, man? Jesus. I can't remember, but I'm going to get this and I'm coming back to you with this one. But they're so good and so heavy, and we watched them at a festival last year in Belgium, Grass Pop Festival actually, and they were so good, man. So good.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, it's cool that you mentioned like instrumental music could influence you in a way. Like art kind of comes out of art in a way. Do you like to leave the lyrics open to interpretation, or do you try to maybe inform the listener onto like seeing things from your point of view in a way?
I think you have to have a nice balance, because whenever I'm listening to music and I listen to a song and I feel the emotion of the lyrics, I always try and think of it from my own perspective. Like, I'm one of these guys that like to put my headphones in and go a walk and pretend like I'm in a music video. So I think it's good to have your own perspective on lyrics. So I definitely like to try and find some balance. But there's a song on Fracture where I'm talking about Scottish independence, and I don't want to force, especially with a topic like that, I don't want to force my opinion on someone. So that song especially is left a bit open to interpretation, because you don't want to piss too many people off, because obviously a lot of people don't have the same views on you as that topic. So yeah. I guess, to answer your question, it's good to try and find a balance.
Yeah, because sometimes if you try to get everybody to see things from your point of view, it almost kind of like you're disappointed in the outcome every time you perform it in a way, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's also a lot to do with, especially if you're talking about politics, the amount of times I go to shows and I'll see a frontman on stage and he's like proper preaching his political views on people. And do you know what, man? Like, I know from my personal experience, I like to go to shows to escape all that bullshit. Like, I like to go see a band and escape that and not think about everything else in the world. So I want people to come to our shows and not feel pressured. I want them to come as an escape, because that's how I felt when I was a kid going to shows. So I definitely don't want to ever make anyone feel like that. Okay, I'm going to have my views and my opinions and I will definitely write about them, but I never want to preach them on someone.
Yeah, very good. There's a lot of fans who are that's like a breath of fresh air to hear that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Here comes, you ready for the most difficult question of the entire interview?
Yes, I've got a cup of tea. I'm ready.
All right. How do you know when a song is done?
Oh, God. When you run out of time, you've got a deadline to finish it by and you've run out of time, because you can keep going over songs so many times and so many times that you just get so, you don't know if the song's even good anymore. Like, I don't know if you've got any questions in this interview regarding this, but when I was writing Fracture, I pretty much wrote all the lyrics and recorded them in the space of like 2 months, because we had a deadline, and I waited and waited to the last minute before I started to write all the songs and record them, because if I have a song written like maybe 6 months to a year in advance, I for sure will not like that song by the time the deadline comes around, and I will change it anyway, because if I sit in something too long, I start to notice things or I start to overthink things. So I like to try and have it written as late as possible in the process, so that it's recorded, it's good, I've made my mind up, it's good, now it's done, it's out, I can't change it. So yeah, like I like to feel pressure, and that's the only way that I know for a fact a song will be finished, if it's released. So yeah, that's the answer to my question. When you have a deadline, that's when the song's finished. All
right, fair enough. I mean, you mentioned you like to work under pressure, right? Like that pressure
Yes.
can almost help the intensity of the song in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and you kind of also brought up a point that I found really interesting. You try to capture a moment within each song.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that brings up a good point, because like, you know, if you work on something for so long, that moment or that emotional spark that you could have felt when writing that probably won't be there the longer you work on it, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. When you look back at the entirety of the Bleed From Within catalog, going from Humanity to Empire to Uprising to Era to Fracture, is this almost kind of like representative on who you are at that particular time too, or the album's kind of like a self-portrait in a way?
I mean, I've never really thought about it that way, but I guess it probably does, and I feel like that's probably the same with every band and every artist. Like, you're writing about who you are at that particular time, and like I definitely look back on albums like Humanity and Empire, and like I would love to forget about those albums even existed, and I know that I've had a lot of kids speak to me and say the albums mean a lot to them, and that means a lot to me hearing that. But when you were writing those songs when you were like 16 years old, and now I'm 32 years old, it's just a bit like, oh. I mean, to answer your question, I guess it does, anytime you write a song, it's definitely speaking about who you are as a person at that point in time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, you look back at those earlier albums, that sucks, because Humanity was an album I jammed when I was a freshman in high school. That breaks my heart a little bit. But, like, I mean, I'd imagine, though, when you look back at your earlier work and be like, we evolved so much, I mean, if you don't look back at your earlier work with a little bit of disdain, I mean, that also has to be concerning, because you want to feel like you've evolved as an artist, so...
Oh yeah, definitely, and like I feel like we've gotten better as musicians as well, and that's why I look back on those albums. I mean, I'm definitely proud of them. Like, if it wasn't for those albums, we wouldn't be where we are now. Like, we wouldn't be writing the music we are now. Sorry, and like I'm definitely in that sense, I'm proud of it, because I mean, we were so young, man. We weren't really playing when we wrote those albums. We weren't really playing that long. Like, we weren't as the guys weren't as good at their instruments as they are now, and I maybe didn't write as well as I do now. And but I totally get where you're coming from, because I'm like a huge fan of bands like like Lamb of God are one of my favourite bands, and I think to this day, Ashes of the Wake is by far their best album. They probably feel the same way that I'm talking about now. Like, they probably think their latest album is their best work, just like I think Fracture is our best work. But like, for me as a Lamb of God fan, like, I do not think that. I think Ashes of the Wake is by far their best album. So I totally get like where people are coming from in that sense. But I think when you've been so involved in the music and writing the music and the whole recording process, you sort of see it differently than other people will when they're listening to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, like, you kind of going back to what we're saying is the albums are representative of who you are a self-portrait of who you are at the time. If your first album, I always call it, when your first album is like your best work, I kind of call it the hybrid theory effect, where like if your best work is when you first start, how is it going to get any better than that? And then you're just going to rehash the same thing. So I think you guys strive for evolution, and that's representative in your catalog.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we obviously want to keep growing and keep making good music, and if we can write a better album every time, that is the most important thing to me, because I want, like, you know, these bands that are just constantly, they've been going for like 20 years and they're constantly just pummeling out amazing, like, look, take Testament for example. I'm a big Testament fan, and I think the 3 tracks they've just released from the latest album are by far their best music. So, and those guys are in their 60s, like, that's inspiring to me.
Yeah, they're new. Did you hear the whole new album yet?
I've only heard the 3 singles that are I don't know if they've released another one, but I've only seen 3 singles released, and that's all I've heard, and I'm dying to hear the album.
The album's out now.
Is it out? When did it come out?
2 weeks ago.
Jesus Christ, man! I need to fucking get my head in the game.
It's amazing. I think it's like the best Testament album in like the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I'm listening to that album today after this interview.
Awesome. I can't wait. So I have 2 more questions for you, and then you can go right into it.
Nice.
But when it comes to, you know, I have yet to see you guys play live. I'm hoping you guys come to the States soon. But, like, when it comes to playing your material live, is there maybe a similar energy into playing live as it is when you're, like, recording in the studio, especially since you really capture a moment with your songs, or is it a separate art altogether?
Yeah, I think it's a separate thing altogether, because when you're in the studio, you obviously don't have the same vibe as you do on a stage, and you have people in front of you, and everyone's sweating and screaming and running around, and you definitely have a lot more room for outlet on stage. Like, when I'm in the studio recording vocals, I'm literally just standing there screaming into a microphone. But when you have hundreds or thousands of people in front of you going crazy, it definitely changes everything.
Yeah. Do you almost have to, like, practice crowd interaction as much as you have to, like, practice the actual song?
Do you know what? I try not to think about that. I feel like that's the sort of thing that should just come to you in that moment. Like, I know a lot of people in bands that they'll, like, literally write down in the notes. I'm not going to name anyone because they'd probably be pissed off at me, but I know a lot of people that will, like, write their set list down, and they'll, like, write notes between every song, roughly what they want to say on stage and stuff. And do you know what? I respect that. Like, be prepared. Like, plan on giving people a good show. But I like it to change every night. You're never going to feel the same on stage every single night as you did the night before. Like, everything, every show, every venue, every crowd, everything changes every night. And I feel like that should come naturally to you in the moment.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, like, a concert is not a play. It's not like you can rehearse a choreography or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't like to blow my own trumpet here, man, but I'm quite a funny guy, so I like to think I've got new jokes every night on stage.
There you go. I mean, no, it's always good. Like, sometimes people find it disappointed where all they do is just play the songs from front to back and don't say anything in between. I think there's like a best of both worlds scenario. It obviously depends on the band, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like with the type of music we play, there's a lot of room for stage chat and maybe jokes and having a bit of a laugh with the crowd. Like, take for example, a few months back I went to see a band called Sleep Token in Glasgow.
Oh, they're awesome. I just saw them with Issues.
Dude, they're so good, man. And that band, I totally understand why there is no talking on stage, because it's very mysterious. And I feel like if that guy was to just talk on stage, it would ruin the whole atmosphere of the show.
Definitely. It depends. It depends really on the band.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Refused, I mean, I saw them play, and I mean, preaching between the songs is what's key to their live performance as much as it is playing the songs, so. That
guy's also an amazing frontman, and his on-stage chat is amazing. I seen Refused a few months back with Thrice in Glasgow, and it was, man, they were so good.
Yeah, one of my favorite interviews ever.
Yeah, did you interview them?
Yeah, I interviewed Dennis.
Oh, nice. I bought The Shape of Punk to Come when I was fucking in high school or something. I love that album. We that same festival I was talking about that I watched that band to, I can't remember the name. We were backstage and I got so drunk and I seen Dennis from The Refused and he was speaking to someone I know from the drummer of Bad Wolves. Do you know that band?
Bad Wolves?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just interviewed Tommy 2 days ago.
Oh, nice. So I know their drummer because he was the drummer in Devil Driver when we toured with Devil Driver. So I seen him, so I went up and I was speaking to him, and Dennis was there, and I was drunk, and I was just standing in front of him. I was like, dude, I love The Refused, and I made a total ass of myself.
We've all been there. We've all been there. We've all been a Punisher at one point in our life.
Yeah, definitely, man. You have to. I'm a music fan. I can't be around like people and bands that I love and act normal. Like.
It happens. And the final question I wanted to ask you is actually coming from Glasgow, Scotland. I mean, I've interviewed so many bands from not from Scotland, but that have played through Glasgow, and they said it's always been like the best shows on their European tours. I imagine that there's a great metal scene that Bleed From Within sort of like cut their teeth in a way, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, we've been playing in Glasgow since 2005, and I feel that over the years we've built up a good, solid fan base here, and obviously people come and go, and like not everyone that was into metal 10 years ago maybe still are, but there is definitely an amazing metal scene here, and I think what makes shows here so special is that everyone is drunk all the time. so when people go to a show, the more drunk they get, the more crazy they go, and you tend to find that 90% of the audience are drunk, so the crowds here are absolutely crazy.
Wouldn't that make it more scary? Like, aren't you worried like some drunk maniac is going to like throw a chair at you guys on stage or something?
Well, no, because people here are professional drinkers. That's the problem. They can drink, get drunk, and still compose themselves because we're professional drinkers in Scotland. So.
All right, fair enough. I live in near all the sports bars where all the frat boy drunks go to all those Irish pubs and everything like that, and they're throwing punches after 2 pints. So they can learn a thing or two from you guys.
Definitely, but going back to what you says about you obviously want us to tour in America. Like we are desperate to come there, man. Like we get a lot of people online getting. Maybe slightly writing some maybe pissed off comments on our Instagram and stuff like, why do you guys never tour the States? We would come see you. It's like not easy, man. There's so much money and work that goes into coming over to the States to do a tour. But it is the States is our biggest streaming market on Spotify. Like we've constantly every day getting messages from people they want us to go there. So we are definitely trying to make that happen, and I believe it's going to happen in the next year.
Awesome.
If all this coronavirus stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
clear up.
I think the longer, what I've noticed is here in America, like it seems like bands from Europe, whether you sound like Slayer or you sound like Nickelback, like if you're from Europe, people are very, very interested in you regardless. I don't know if that's the case with American bands in Europe, but like I know that like Rammstein, they did one U.S. tour and then they went away for like 10 years and then they came back and they were playing like stadiums. So there's just something about bands from Europe coming to the States that just people are always anticipating.
Yes, it's 100% the same here. Like,
yeah, but I should warn you, when you do come to the States, we're not as professional drinkers. I just want to let you know.
Oh, that's fine. We like to try and take it easy and keep it sensible on tour anyway, so.
All right, fair enough.
Sometimes, not if we have a day off.
Fair enough. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed talking with you, Scott. Is there just anything else with Bleed From Within you would like to promote with the new album coming out on the 29th of May?
We're definitely releasing another single this month. So that's about all I can give away at this point because we're still in the early stages. We've definitely announced the album release date. It's May 29th, and we've got another single coming out this month.
Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you so much. Everybody, Scott Kennedy of Bleed From Within. Be sure to pick up Fracture coming out May 29th on Century Media. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we'll see you next time.